I now call on the sponsor for the resolution, the delegates from China, to place their arguments.
Thank you, Secretary General and honorable delegates. China stands in front of this delegation today to further the work already produced by this body in relation to space governance. In the last decade, the world has seen monumental shifts in the exploration and development in and regarding space. The mission of China's space program is to, and I quote, explore outer space to expand humanity's understanding of the Earth and the cosmos. Even though China mainly favors this resolution, we believe an amendment to Clause 1, Article from affirms that all states to strongly encourages that all states would be beneficial for this resolution. This minor change shall allow all states to maintain their sovereignty while supporting the freedom and working towards a common goal. China knows full too well of the exclusionist policies states may place on each other in the search of dominance. To this day, China is excluded from the ISS, the International Space Station. This has led us to create our own space station. Tiangong Space Station will be open its doors by this end of this decade and is open to all states. States such as Italy have already taken us up on this offer and has already worked with us in this space station. This resolution embodies the ethics of this chamber, which holds states accountable through treaties such as, but not limited to, the 1967 Space Treaty, a treaty that provides the basis of international space law. Article 3 holds an important place in this council's future. To date, there have been no incidents of space violence, both through terrorism or war. It is a fundamental goal of this resolution to maintain this peaceful outlook into the future and beyond. Even though states may war with each other on Earth, this antagonism should not transfer to space. We have demonstrated this willingness to work with other states through the use of US-built satellites in our own space program. China makes use of 9 satellites in orbit around Earth, built by Boeing and Maxar Technologies, both US-based companies. China will struggle to understand the condemnation of this resolution due to the nature of this resolution. The states asks, which state is against the responsible and peaceful use of space? Which state is against reaching a common understanding to reduce threats to space systems? Let the record show that the Secretary General that these states stand before us here and abhor the values of this chamber. However, even though China recognizes that there may be opposition, we shall work with all states to push this resolution forward for the sake of humanity. We thank our friends the Solomon Islands, Brazil, India, Papua New Guinea, the United States, and others who have expressed their support for this resolution for a peaceful and prosperous future in space. Thank you.
I thank the delegate from China. The seconder for the motion, the United States will have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. As a delegation for the United States of America, we propose to speak in favor of a multilateral approach to space governance. The US is committed to space governance as evidenced by a ratification of all relevant space treaties, as well as our endeavors to ensure that space is safe through the advancement of the Artemis Accords, which aims to establish standards for safe behavior in space, of which Brazil, France, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Japan, New Zealand, and Ukraine have all acceded to. We would like to heavily emphasize that space governance is not solely applicable to wealthy states. One does not need a coherent space program to benefit from this resolution. Technology which is developed from any country's advancement in space is beneficial to our international community, regardless of economic level or space development. In closing, we, the delegation of the United States of America, second this resolution for the protection and the effective governance of space, and offer to work peacefully and in good faith with the nations of the world to achieve mutual and beneficial progress for humanity and for the planet we depend on for the survival of our race. Thank you.
I thank the delegate from the United States for her contribution. The floor will now be taken by the delegate against the resolution from the Russian Federation.
Mr. Secretary General, we, the delegates of Russia, blatantly oppose this resolution regarding space governance for a multitude of reasons. Russia has been blamed for the copious amounts of space junk orbiting our planet. This is in fact a falsehood, as our great nation is one of the many countries contributing to this issue. The Western leader, the United States, have similarly conducted destructive anti-satellite tests against its own satellites, most recently in 2008 at its significant amounts of space debris, escalating the amount of rubbish in our planet's ring of debris. So why is Russia being held responsible? If we recall, during our Cold War with the United States, they launched 500 million copper wires into orbit in the hopes of forming a ring around the Earth, which 60 years later, are finally seeing the result of. And now they are redirecting the consequences of these actions onto irreproachable countries. Russia has already been made advancements with our allies to reduce this population encompassing the orbit of the planet through an alliance between a few of our nations, namely Afghanistan and Turkey.
This resolution wishes for us as a nation to study security measures and potential unknown risks that may be found in space, aliens. There is no doubt that this is merely an excuse and a hidden loophole for the Western countries, led by the United States, to exploit and use it as a justification to develop a global missile system, which they've already proposed they do in the past. Russia believes there is no reason to prepare for a confrontation with aliens, as we are already strong enough. And this preparation would be a drain of economic resources. Furthermore, why would we as a race prepare to go to intergalactic war with entities of such knowledge? And they had the capability to make first contact with the solar system before us. Haven't we learned from the precedent other countries, namely Australia and the United States, have made, that diving into inter-race negotiation with aggression, violence, and essentially war is never the right way to go? Wouldn't we simply be provoking these entities into a war rather than focusing on the peaceful and possibly beneficial contributions they could have on our planet? Forming a missile system would send the message that the human race is dangerous and uninterested in the peaceful exchange of knowledge, resources, and trust. This resolution also highlights the supposed need for all the nations and people of the world to unite under these terms. This is an obscene demand that would again create a codependency between countries that would allow for smaller countries to piggyback on the success of other nations without exerting any real effort towards the cause, and would reinforce the idea they don't have to contribute to benefit from space exploration. For these reasons, Russia believes that this resolution is comparable to the junk orbiting our planet and should be dealt with as so, incinerated. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General.
I thank the delegates from Russia for that innovative presentation. Now that the opposing views on this resolution has been canvassed, the floor is now open to discussion, and I call on the representative from Saudi Arabia to make the contribution.
Shukran. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Representing Saudi Arabia, we strongly believe that we should all be collaborating together to establish a robust set of rules and norms around space governance that would benefit the rapid growth of space exploration. This is why, as a country, we are for this resolution. Space activities are associated with increased risk and potential danger to human life and health, infrastructure, the Earth's environment, and outer space as a whole, as well as require comprehensive international regulation to ensure the stability, transparency, and efficiency of all operations in outer space.
The nature, process, and complexity of space organized operations and services are increasing, along with significant increase in the number of interested parties. The importance of outer space for humanitarian, economic, political, military, and strategic purposes will continue to grow for states, communities, and private enterprises, which is why governance is needed. Saudi Arabia has proudly signed the Artemis Accord on the 14th of July this year to join the United States of America, Australia, Brazil, France, Israel, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Ukraine, and the United Arab Emirates, and other responsible countries to confirm our commitment to space, safe, sustainable, and responsible space exploration. As well as this, Papua New Guinea has committed their agreement to peaceful space exploration.
The representatives from New Zealand.
Mr. Secretary General, we as delegates for New Zealand communicate that we are insufficient for long-term regulation of space governments. This is ultimately due to two factors. First, there are no specific requirements in the current guidelines for the preservation and long-term management of space resources, sustainability, or the environment in space. To act too soon, lacking thorough research, and damage something we want to preserve and protect would be a travesty. Second, there is uncertainty on the best way to operationalize these current regulations in the context of contemporary space resource activity. We believe additional multilateral rules, norms, or standards are required to guarantee the long-term sustainability of space resources, to support the peaceful use of space, to ensure that existing international obligations are implemented in a way that ensures transparency and clarity, and to make sure that commercial operators are aware of the rules in advance. Space access is a universal right and should be treated as such. We would like to add that New Zealand's first government-funded space mission, aimed at helping cut global methane emissions, is expected to be ready for launch next year. The joint New Zealand-US satellite aims to help with the key climate change issue by identifying methane gas leaks from oil and gas companies as well as agriculture. We would like to ensure that we protect our planet before visiting another. To do this, we have a proposed amendment of the Sustainable Power and Renewable Committee, or SPARC. By signing this, you agree to zero emissions by 2050, and in return, we will give you access to renewable technologies. In this already is superpowers China and United States, as well as Papua New Guinea, Haiti, Brazil, and Germany. We are prepared to vote for the resolution based on the guarantee that the space environment will be available and accessible for the benefit of everybody, both today and in the future. And New Zealand is committed to working with all stakeholders on these problems and agreeing to a fair and just resolution. We hope SPARC provides a pathway for the resolution to be reached.
I now call on the delegates from India to put forward their case.
Mr. Secretary General, we, the delegates of India, strongly support this resolution. We also want to echo the statements made by the United States, China, and Brazil in support of unilateral and multilateral cooperation for the future human exploration of space. We would like to condemn the Russian view that the space exploration and cooperation proposed by the United States would somehow lead to us starting a war with aliens. Now, generally speaking, India is a peaceful nation. We have the strong desire to maintain peace both on Earth and in space. These multilateral cooperations will hopefully ensure both.
Our government, India, must take cooperation with all these other nations, every single nation, every state here that wants peace in space. Space is no place for rivalry. It is no place for war. We need to have peace. We need to have silence, no anger, none of this world domination that Russia is suggesting. We must also strongly condemn Russia for this hostile actions that's taking place. It goes against everything we stand for. And further, we must cooperate with China and our already established connections with Brazil in furthering the development of space.
I now call upon the delegates from Germany to make a contribution.
Mr. Secretary General, we, the delegates from Germany, wish to strongly express our support for the enforcement of definitive space governance as supported by the US, India, and our major ally, France. Our country prides itself on its extensive scientific research and inventive industry endeavors. Our government firmly believes that space exploration should be undertaken purely on the basis of scientific research and advancements. Our countrywide industries benefit greatly from the progression of research support, and we are not in a position to jeopardize our economic integrity for the sake of oppressing authority over other nations. Our government wishes to avoid a militarized space race at all costs, as we would inevitably be excluded from this process due to our lack of space military, ultimately wasting and exploiting all of our extensive prior research and scientific breakthroughs.
Like China and the US and many others, Germany has really stated that they want to remove the threat and free space from an arms race. Germany has shown this through being one of 17 states that have ratified the Moon Agreement. And it's one of the things that Germany wishes to put into the resolution that governs the use of the moon and eliminates the exploitation of its natural resources. Germany has also ratified and strongly supports the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which lays down the principles governing countries and outlining that there can be no sovereign claim on any parts of the moon or other celestial bodies. Article 4 outlines Germany's main belief that we believe that it should be implemented in the resolution that no one country should have sovereignty over any part of space. And due to these provisions, Germany has strongly supported Article 2 of the resolution that is urging states to sign and ratify these treaties in order to follow those provisions.
Mr. Secretary General, the country of Germany implores you to recognize Russia's continued attempts to merely do what they please, especially following their abandonment of participation in international space station endeavors and the suspicious nature of their intentions in this. Developments in 2020 particularly showed countries such as Russia's growing discrepancy between words and deeds with regard to military operations in outer space. Although not an active player in the weaponization of outer space, Germany has taken a strong interest and active part over the years in preventing the acceleration of the space arms race. Our government's current voting pattern reflects our increasing frustration with the double standards displayed by Russia and other major space powers, which is undeniably threatening the integrity and maintainment of global peace.
I now call on the delegate from Ethiopia.
Mr. Secretary General, as a delegation of Ethiopia, we disagree with the resolution. China volunteered to help us set up a satellite for the purpose of monitoring climate change. But the findings of that satellite go through China first, so who knows how they're using those information. China has 499 satellites, whilst Africa as a continent has a total of 42 satellites, which is nearly 12 times less than China. China's population is growing and so is India's, and are looking to have more land to place their peoples in. Ethiopia is a land that they can be using, and the alliance that we formed, who knows how they're gonna take advantage of that. Climate change is a crisis for our people, and we are not dealing well with it, with help or without help. We have agreed to not start wars in space and not weaponize any celestial bodies, and we know we do not break our promise. But we disagree with the second article of the 1967 treaty that states no sovereignty claim of any body in outer space. If areas of Earth can be owned, why doesn't the same rule apply to outer space?
How the hell are we going to get international cooperation? It only takes one man, one bad man or one bad woman, as we've seen in the past, to change the entire world and create horrible things happening. So we can't get everyone on the same page. There's 7.8 billion people in the world and no one's going to be on the same page. It's just you're living in fantasy land thinking that everyone's going to be able to cooperate together.
I now call on the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thank you, Secretary General. The delegation for the Democratic Republic of the Congo recognizes that it is not currently a superpower in the realm of space. Our limited space program is dependent on Dr. Jean-Patrice Geca and his private DTA company. We've only had 3 successful launches, most recently the Troposphere 5, which killed its sole rodent life on board. The Troposphere 6 lacked funding and is attempting to crowdsource funds. Our deal with China for the Congo Satellite 1 in 2012 has also fallen through. In a world where 80% of our citizens live in poverty, space is simply not a priority. Where was this enthusiasm and urge to empty their pockets by all these states about issues on Earth that affect us all? The realities of life in the Congo inhibit us to dream about space and the future. However, we do agree with the notions of peace in space entailed in this resolution. However, we think that the language is not particular enough. In particular, even with the Chinese delegates' amendments specifically, we dislike Article 2, which encourages and also does not guarantee equality for exploration, leading to a new space imperialism. Thus, we will be abstaining unless the promises made by the Russian Federation to fund our own space program comes through.
Ultimately, Mr. Secretary, this resolution is toothless and performative at best, and frankly, insulting at worst. But in the spirit of the UN's aim of multilateral cooperation and equal and equitable consideration for all involved parties, we will read no malice into it. There is no selfish intent in China's proposal to amend the resolution to be still less binding and dilute it even further yet. There is no negligence or deliberate obfuscation involved in the use of vague terms such as encourage and express. No, the non-binding nature of this proposal is without malice, but nevertheless, it bears no value for small and economically weak states. Where it imposes limits, it provides no protection. Therefore, as we see no value in this resolution, at this stage, we're planning to abstain until we have the resources available to establish a reliable and successful space program.
We now go to the sponsor for the resolution. I ask the delegate for China to rebut the negatives that have been laid on the floor.
Thank you, Secretary General and honorable delegates. The Russian view, unfortunately, is unsubstantiated and fails to appeal to the logic and the reason of this chamber. I ask the delegates one simple question before we go into this vote. Where has the state seeking world domination produced beneficial outcomes for the global community? Russia, instead of supporting a resolution aiming for peace in the global community, constantly seeks to point fingers, such as at the United States. Is it not time we stop pointing fingers and work together to ensure the safety and security in space? China would also like to comment on Ethiopia's claim that this resolution lacks merit due to the nature of the cosmopolitan support for it to come to fruition. Why are we here in this chamber if we do not believe in fighting for international cooperation?
All this resolution aims to further is the peaceful use of space. It aims to take the individual strengths of states, let it be the United States satellite program, New Zealand's efforts to combat climate change, and Germany's constant fight, the Solomon Islands' generous offer to swap their land for our expertise, and the SNES treaty signed by around 10 states. We would also like to extend our funds, as well as the US, who will contribute to countries such as the DRC, receiving $5 billion from China, a further $5 billion from the US, and a combined $1 billion from other allies, all in hope of getting CongoSat-1 off the ground and into low Earth orbit. We must ensure no state shall have the sovereignty over space. China will seek to actively participate in the formulation of international rules on outer space under the framework of the United Nations and work jointly with other countries to address the challenges in ensuring the long-term sustainability of outer space activities. As international cooperation is the key pillar holding up the aims of this resolution, and it is crucial to its success. whether it be an increase in missile use in space, the destruction of telecommunications in low Earth orbit, or the possibility of space war. This resolution aims to inhibit these possibilities long before they may come into fruition.
Thank you for that summation, the delegate from China. I now call on the delegate, the delegate from the Federation of Russia. If he can recover from all the beating he's had from the delegates on the floor.
Mr. Secretary General, we, the delegates of Russia, have taken into consideration the points made by other delegates and wish to respond to the obvious scorn over the notion of aliens as expressed by India. This small country, is this small country under the belief humans are the only race in the universe? Our supposed attack upon the US, as called as by the delegates of France, is justified through the amount of debris the US has put into our orbit, as also is the fact that China has put double the amount of trash in orbit of the planet than us. Our bloc, Niet Zapadny, which translates to not Western, includes Turkey and Turkey at this point in time.
Because Afghan left it without letting us know and without retracting their assignment of a legal binding document. Thank you.
We would like to remind the delegates of Afghanistan, they've signed into our bloc and promised to vote against this resolution on a binding document. We also suggest countries such as Papua New Guinea and the Democratic Republic of Congo that are being auctioned for abstain from this vote as they are obviously not of a sound morality and they are being very selfish. The said bloc has been forming from the very start of the United Nations meeting. The names Niet Zapadny was originally formed of Afghanistan, Turkey, and it was going to have the United Nations of Congo for $3 billion, but they've recently since been bought out. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General.
I thank the delegates from the Russian Federation. And after all the issues have been canvassed, we shall now proceed to the vote. I ask all those delegates who vote in favor of the resolution to stand up and show up their flags so that the counters can count you. Yeah.